Hello, bad movie lovers. I'm Nick Scheist,
the master of the stupid stuff,
and host of Bad Movies We Love, the podcast where we take a lovingly critical look at movies that may have fallen short of expectations, but left an indelible impact on our hearts. Every week, we dive into a different maligned movie. From mega flops to cult classics to B-movies to forgotten disasters, we laugh, we love, we ponder, and maybe, just maybe, we feel things. Along the way, we drop behind-the-scenes trivia, spin our bonus wheel of hypotheticals, compose heartfelt haikus, we face the reality of Critics' Corner, and prescribe the perfect gateway drug movies to expand your bad movie horizons. So if you've ever said, this movie sucks, but I love it anyway, you're in the right place.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Look for Bad Movies We Love wherever you get your podcasts and join us for the journey. Because sometimes, the best movies are the worst ones. Oh, hello there. You are now listening to Cunk'd, a transatlantic production of the Scheist Podcast Network. Welcome to Cunk'd, a very unofficial podcast, hosted by Nick Scheist and Skadooosch. So join us as we celebrate the life and work of Philomena Cunk'd. This is the Cunk'd on Earth finale, Episode 5, Wars of the Worlds.
Hello, this is Nigel Spivey, and you are listening to Cunk'd. I said that carefully. Cunk'd. Is it an unofficial or an unofficial?
A very unofficial podcast.
Deeply unofficial.
Welcome back. We're here again, getting conked. Hi ho. Yeah, hi ho, motherfuckers.
Hi ho, motherfuckers. It is the last episode in the series of Cunk'd, a very unofficial podcast. And it's been a journey, Nick.
It's been a journey. I think we need to change it to deeply unofficial podcast after hearing from Spivey, though. Nige, should I call him Nige now? I don't know him.
Nige. So. Doctor, I mean, there's been so many. Yeah, we've got. I mean, we'll get to this as well, but we've spoken to a few experts. I mean, obviously, we were so thrilled to have Dr. Nigel Spivey, Nige, on the last episode. But since then, we've spoken to a number of other experts, and it will please you, obviously, Nick, and other listeners to know that my continued inability to maintain just one singular source, like of someone's name during an interview or a conversation, it's there. Do you know what? I embrace it. I've used doctor, professor, first name, last name.
Just call him Spive. No,
Spivey, Spivmeister General.
He's never coming back on the show now. Well, he probably won't listen to this, so I think we're safe.
I think he liked us. I don't think he liked us that much.
Well, he hasn't met me yet, so we still got a chance. Tell him I'll hang out next time.
Fair point.
Yeah, hasn't met Jake, although Jake is here with us as well, and Jake's been the one who's been doing all of the legwork on doing the email outreach, talking to either the experts directly or somebody in their camp. Some of them have agents, some of them don't. But in the process of doing that, as you mentioned, Skadooosch, that there are some other interviews that have happened that will see the light of day. And I know there are some more in the works, potentially.
Jake has done exemplary work. And just to go back to what you were saying about, the email outreach, I like to think of it as he is like a fisherman. Like, not just any fisherman, Nick. Like, in my head, it's like like the biblical, the guys who cast the nets from the waist and do that big arc, like throw out a fishing net, like in slow motion, usually over like a dance club track that you're watching on a TV screen in the Turkish barbers. It's one of those. He has done incredible work. We were we're going to talk about this, but when we started this podcast, it was, again, very much rudimentary, a Brit and an American talking about, or me essentially introducing Philomena Cunk'd and this particular style of comedy and a look at history and science and all sorts of topics in a very unique way. And we've done very well in terms of, I think the first 3 episodes, we're like a moth, as I said before. We're bouncing up against the truth of what makes Philomena Cunk'd great. But without Jake coming in and his work, I think obviously the last episode gives us something different, which is a genuine expert who can tell us what it was like to speak to her, what happened on the day, what his take on it was. And Nige was incredible. I think after we released the last episode, it was very shortly that we heard from Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. Was that right, Jake? He was the next one in.
I would say I heard personally, I heard from him a little bit after. He kind of responded rather tersely with, I can do it for a very short amount of time. And then I didn't really hear anything back until I continued to kind of
That's right.
poke him with a stick.
I mean, but what a poke. Because I've got to be honest, like after that initial quite terse reply, he very quickly was quite up for it. And we, as the animals we are, we locked him in. We locked him in because Sheldrake is a very interesting case. And he's a wonderful person to speak to, very interesting ideas. And so we were thrilled with that. The most notable thing about Rupert Sheldrake is that there's only really 2 or 3 clips of him in the entire series of Cunk'd on Earth, and it's very, very short runtime. And I have a feeling, as we'll go on to see in the interviews, he wasn't too impressed with, like, because he said himself he had 30, 40 minutes with Diane. He knew exactly who she was going in, which is interesting. We'll come back to that later. But his reflection on the interview was that they talked about a lot of interesting stuff and there was a lot of great stuff. I think he was also under the impression that we personally, Jake and I, actually held the footage that didn't make it to air. I didn't have it in my heart to pause the interview and
what gave him that idea?
Well, listen, it's in the title. It's in the title. That's got us covered, Nick, hasn't it? A very unofficial podcast.
Yep.
But yes, Rupert Sheldrake was a big one for us, and I had a fantastic conversation with him in which it broke my brain to prepare for that interview, because if anyone isn't familiar with the concept of morphic resonance and how that might potentially work and the idea of collective memory, I've got to be honest. Listen, Nick, it's not often that I blow my own trumpet. I put in some fucking work on that one. I would
imagine you would have to, because
you don't want to be that guy, do you? Like reading off of a prompt, like, so I hear that morphic resonance is this. Like, no, I wanted to have a base level understanding of what his where he comes from, and it required the work, and I'm very happy that I did the work. I'm not gonna lie, it hurt my tiny little brain to do so.
Well, maybe you putting in the work helped him understand that, like, oh, this person is not here to get like a canned answer. Instead of 10 minutes, we can speak for an hour, kind of thing.
100%. I mean, I even brought in elements of AI into it, which on reflection, I've got to be honest, I walked into that interview having prepared what I thought genuinely to this day was the most relevant, like, you know, like if you could craft a specific joke just for one person, that one person would get, and it would be so good because it's so unique. And it was a not joke. I was so happy with it. I was so confident. And yeah, Well, you'll see in the interview. But anyway, that's not the end of the story, because obviously Rupert Sheldrake was a great interview, and we'll be releasing that very soon. However, before we actually made contact with Rupert Sheldrake, Jake, I don't know if you want to come back in here, because we'd actually spoken to Irving Finkel. And if you remember back at the very beginning, the first episode we spoke, Nick, we talked about Irving Finkel.
How could we not?
How could you not? Because as someone who, again, on Instagram, on socials, I've been sharing a lot of these clips for a long time. I know the flow of the comments. He is top tier expert. He is her favorite. He's a lot of other people's favorite. And again, similar to Sheldrake, he's only in a couple of clips, not very many. There's probably almost a shorter amount of time with Irving Finkel than there is with Sheldrake. But what an impact! And we got, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying about Jake's email outreach fisherman technique. His email quality was of such a standard that although it did take a while for Dr. Irving Finkel to reply to us, his reply was outstanding. And honestly, we didn't hear back from him for a while, and we kind of felt a little bit, I don't know, in that uneasy stage. Is he actually, did he really mean what he said? Oh, okay, we'll just focus on Sheldrake for now. And I literally had finished the interview with Professor Rupert Sheldrake, and less than a minute after, I got an email alert directly from Irving Finkel giving me his phone number and saying, let's talk. When are we doing this? So a couple of days later, we had the interview with Irving Finkel. But before that, what's the expression, Nick? Is it never meet your heroes?
That is the expression.
What's your opinion on that?
In the instances where I have met like childhood heroes, it's been fine. I've never really had that moment where it's like, oh, this guy's an asshole. So I feel like it's okay, but I do sort of already.
You understand the fear base, which is what if he's not as amazing as I think he's going to be?
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I think I also sort of already like preface it in my own mind with the notion that like these are just people. So like the hero worship is sort of like already kind of removed from the equation. It's like this is someone that I appreciate, but not somebody that I'm like fawning over to the point where I can't speak.
That's so wise, Nick. It's so wise, and it's a beautiful segue because it reminds me of a part from my personal growth as a human being is very much anchored in Terry Pratchett. If anyone isn't familiar with him, he wrote the Discworld series, fantasy humanist comedy writer. Genuinely one of the best men who's ever lived, in my opinion. And a lot of his personality, a lot of his writing and output kind of is imbued in my personality growing up with him. And in one of his, after he passed away, there was a documentary on BBC Two called Back to Black, in which Paul Kay, listeners who have seen Ricky Gervais's Afterlife, I'm just going to say the therapist, the inappropriate therapist from Afterlife. But older British listeners will know him as Dennis Pennis. He plays Terry Pratchett in that documentary, and there's a wonderful part of it in which he describes a meeting when he went to his first sci-fi fan con. He went to a convention in maybe the 70s, I think, and he went to the toilet and stood at the urinal, and behind him heard the door come in and heard someone go into the cubicle. And whilst, as all men, as anyone who's ever been in a public toilet, there's a certain level of compartmentalization that needs to go on, because you're hearing things and you're knowing things, but in your head it's like, no, that is happening, but it's not happening. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is, he heard someone taking a massive shit.
Haven't we all?
haven't we? Like a proper monster. And out of curiosity, as a young man, he just perhaps prolonged his time at the urinal and in washing his hands just to see. And out of the cubicle, after a significant amount of time, strolled Arthur C. Clarke. And that's beautifully poetic because, again, it reminded him even his heroes go for a poo every now and again, which is a great line. But it also links closely because on an emotional level, it's saying what I just said about Terry Pratchett is very, very true. And I have incredibly loving and intense connection with Terry Pratchett and how he views the world. And in terms of a personality, I've seen probably all the videos you can see of interviews with Terry Pratchett. I know how he talked, I know how he moved, I know his mannerisms, but also when someone speaks, you know kind of the shape of their brain. There are certain people like that. And I said to Jake before, but way before I even spoke to Irving Finkel, that I had this sense in me, and maybe I put it there, that needs to be considered. But perhaps speaking to Irving Finkel after Sir Terry Pratchett passed away a number of years ago would probably be the closest I would ever get to speaking to Terry Pratchett. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the personality traits, the worldview, the voice, the comedy, the eccentricity, the knowledge, like that degree of wisdom that allows you to look. I don't want to say look down on everyone because that's not who he is or not who Terry Pratchett was. But do you know what I mean? They're able to view the world in a much wider context than probably you or I or most people. Yeah. So speaking to him for the first time, I got a phone call with him, and I think he thought that phone call where we spoke, I maybe didn't make it clear that we were just going to have a chat before actually recording the interview, because he launched straight into what happened with Famila. And I was almost on the back foot, like, oh, dude, you're giving me like too much gold, too quick. No, save it. But you can't stop Irving Finkel. You can't stop. Like, the freight train is on the tracks and he's rolling. And I'm thinking, and then a small part of me kicked in and thought, do you know what? It's fine. Just let him finish. Tell him that obviously this isn't the conversation and we'll be recording another time. Because he strikes me as the type of man who can, just because he said it once, it doesn't mean that the second time he says it is going to be in any way diluted.
Yeah, that's it's refreshing to know that somebody who sort of captivated the audience of the show with a very limited amount of screen time really has all of the kind of like personality and energy that you would hope that person has beyond what we got to see on the show.
I mean, listen, if it's based on this case alone, everyone, meet your fucking heroes. Meet your heroes, because they may just be even better than you think they're going to be. He's incredible, and you guys will watch the interview. We put out a number of clips from it. He has an incredible array of points that he made about Philomena, and we talked about it, Nicola, in terms of us bumping up against those truths in the first few episodes, and we really did. I need to give us credit, because although we're not experts and we're not dumb, but we're probably not on the intellectual caliber of the experts that we've been speaking to recently. But we got pretty close to putting our finger on what it is that makes her special. I think the magnificent difference is that when we started speaking to the experts, they can do it in 2 to 3 sentences off the top of their head and do it perfectly as to why she works. And I think Irving Finkel has one of those explanations in the interview. It's magnificent.
Well, it's also sort of right from the horse's mouth with her, having had that experience and having had the 30 minutes or so to sit there in the chair and speak to her while she's in character. It's a much more tactile and lived experience for them than it is for us as the audience, where the entire episode that we see is a lot more manicured. There's a lot more voiceover built in. There's, recuts of certain parts of, where she's walking and talking, explaining something. So there's a lot more like structure around what we see. And then there's like a couple of clips that are pulled from those interviews. But we don't see her really like interact with people in any way outside of the expert conversations. So they have the inside track, having seen all of that. And as you're sitting here talking and we're reflecting on Jake's impressive work for us with the emails, I feel like Jake has put sort of the official into the unofficial, if that makes sense. I feel like we're borderline have to take that out, and we need to like rename the show like an unaffiliated podcast, because it's like we're becoming more official as a product of Jake's efforts.
It's a bold brand strategy to continuously evolve your name as you go along. Now, I don't think specifically now is the time for us to discuss that. My personality. No, Nick, and I'll tell you why. Fucking admin. It'll be admin. You're gonna have to go in and update all of the. No.
I would probably just change the title on the actual cover art, and most people probably wouldn't even notice. But then when I do the voiceover, I would have to change it as well. It's not outside the realm of possibilities, but I just feel like to give Jake the flowers, to acknowledge the hard work, is that you carried us into.
Well done, Jake. You've nearly broken our brand. Well done. Well done. Through your success, your achievements. Nick is now considering a Frankish king's branding strategy, whereby he dilutes us every time we get closer to being official.
I just ask one thing out of all this: please don't make me do morphic resonance.
No, okay. Listen, I don't think we're gonna. Well, I don't know. Morphic resonance is, well, if by its own theory, and this is for those who know, it should be easier for other people to do Philomena Cunk'd fan podcasts after what we've done. It should be easier all around the world. Yeah. And listen, I encourage anyone who loves Philomena Cunk'd, or anyone who loves anything like this, genuinely, as an experience from the heart, just do it, because it's really not that hard. You just need a few friends and a microphone and an internet connection. Go and make something about what you love. Do it, because it will be rewarding. And Jesus Christ, has this been rewarding? And it's only been a few hours, like what, 8 hours?
Yeah, I think there's only 6 episodes so far. I think, right?
We had a 2-parter.
Yeah. So one was a 2-part episode just because it was long. So really, there's like 5 total episodes that we've done, and it started with 2 guys with microphones. Well, you didn't even have a microphone. I still don't even know if you have a microphone. You're not on camera Nick. Now, so you probably don't.
Yeah, I don't, and I'll tell you why. Because I have one of those microphones, and I hear it on other people's podcasts, and now I know what the problem is it's a desk-based one, and if I move a nanometer, if I move a tiny bit, you get that noise, which is like
yeah.
And I'm not, me, Nick, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not.
You're not?
I don't. I mean, that's slightly insulting, but yes, I'm not a perfectionist, but that drives me mad. So what I do is I just use the thing that I know that works, which is a good pair of We could do. Oh yeah, the Sony Wi-Fi noise cancelling headphones. It's
And
not great, but I know it doesn't have that fucking ringing sound
no,
every
it
time
works. It works.
Yeah.
And, when I'm not doing this show, I produce several of my own shows. I actually produce a couple of shows that are not part of my network that I do for other people. And, for the most part, I'm like, yeah, it probably will benefit you to have a longer term investment in a good microphone, but
You don't need
a
it.
pair of wired headphones with a
Yeah.
mouthpiece is good enough to get you started. There's a bunch of free software out there that you can get started with, and it's not as daunting of a task as you maybe think it might be. But
hmm
you just got to get the ball rolling, and then like the momentum
hmm
just becomes its own thing, and you'll start doing it, and you'll get the hang of it.
Exactly. And if you're not successful, it just okay. Let's rewind again. Like, I know that there is a stigma around podcasts to the degree now, which is it's almost in every light-hearted comedy, American
Yeah.
comedy drama, or murder documentary or so. People always talk about podcasts. Oh, everyone's got a podcast. I get it. I do get it. However, I think it's very easy to sneer at everyone having a podcast. Why is it a bad thing? If you don't like it, don't listen to it. If it's not good, then don't listen to it. But I believe people are missing the point in that respect, which is podcasting basically levels the playing field. Whereas before, and we've talked about technological advancements and new futures that we drift into. Think about how long anyone over the age of 30, think about how long you were dictated to in terms of the content that you received. And it was literally what is on that box over there. And for the beginning of your life, that was dictated by your guardian or parent. And then as you grow, that barrier kind of dissolves. Is it not a better future? Is it not a better world we live in which we ourselves can decide what content is worthy and not? Because that's the barrier that major broadcasting and legacy broadcasting presents to people. If it's not up to our standard, if it's not what we say it is, it doesn't get seen.
No, that's a good point. And I mean, that's why YouTube is as popular as it is. That's why TikTok has
It's also a
become
fucking
as
shithole,
popular.
Nick, as well.
Look, that is true. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that when you go into that shithole, like there are some really good things there, but
Yes,
the algorithm itself kind of leads you astray. It's like, oh, you watch this thing, you may like this thing, and then all of a sudden you're watching something you don't like. But like for me, I'm not typically going on YouTube to consume sort of alternate entertainment, I wouldn't say.
No.
It's like I watch
You
people
go for what you want.
I watch people build cabins or convert buses into homes, like old school buses that are converted into like travel homes. Or I watch
Nick,
survivalists build camping sites.
Stop, Nick. Stop. You're supposed to be an American. What the fuck is going on?
I am an American.
You sound like the most English person I've ever met in my entire life.
It's funny. I got a friend a Scottish friend who is like, he lives on the border between like Scotland and England. And
what, Carlisle? That kind of...
No, him and I have talked about this specifically, in that we sort of like watch this kind of stuff when we just have free time. So yeah, like if left to my own devices, I will consume that kind of stuff on YouTube, and then I'm not really led astray. I watch a lot of like DIY videos, and then I don't even DIY the stuff myself. I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. If I ever needed to convert a bus, then I've got some ideas.
Come on, you're skating. No. Listen, you're skating around the issue here, Nick. You like comfort content, and your comfort content is watching people interior decorate, and that's okay.
Oh, trust
There's nothing
me,
wrong with that.
No, I used to, when I was at the gym, they would have a bunch of news things on, and then one of them would always be HGTV, and I was like, I'm watching Property Brothers or Good Bones or whatever shows on HGTV, because I like a nicely functional kitchen, because I don't have one. So That is my
Ooh,
comfort
that's
content.
interesting. Listen, dude, literally, like some marketer somewhere would pay good money for that info.
Yeah, I'm
That's
sure
that.
they
That's
do.
I'm sure they do. But just to circle back to the point, guys, if you like something like we did with Philomena Kunk, or I did, sorry, that sounds very. Oh, look at me. But no, it's as simple as this. I like something. I knew someone called Nick, and I thought he might like it too. So we started a podcast, and now we have we have an audience, Nick. We have a lovely, incredible, educated audience. Come back to that later. And it's all literally the thing that will stop you doing it is the voice in your head saying, "Well, no one wants to hear from me." Just trust me on this. Take a risk because if no one listens to it, no one listens to it. It's okay. You can take it down at any point, but there is nothing lost by spending some time sat with friends talking about stuff you like, genuinely. And
Yeah.
you may be surprised how many other people actually want to listen to it. You may be. So just do it.
Yeah, if you would have told me that we would have had like 3,000 people listening to this show, I'd have been like, nah, not this soon. We
And
haven't
most of them
produced
Americans.
anything. Yeah, a high percentage of them definitely.
And at least one of them,
Americans.
Nick, at least one of them is definitely a MAGA supporter, or was before that advert went out.
We got the one MAGA supporter from that other show that we ad bombed. Yeah, maybe. But like the UK still like probably I think second most listenership, but Canada, Germany, Australia, like a lot of different countries represented. Like there's 5 pages of countries that listen to this. Taiwan, Romania, Brazil, Serbia, Portugal, like nuts. Absolutely nuts. So
It's
thank you.
incredible. Yeah,
They're
thank you to
probably like,
everyone.
wait a second, you guys are not talking about episode 5, but in terms of being a good segue,
they want us to get to the content, dude. Okay.
We talk about technology and accessibility, and that's kind of where this episode leaves off. So we should probably start at the beginning with the cloning of baby Hitler, or well, not baby Hitler. Sorry, I think I misspoke. It was the cloning of Hitler had already begun around the end of World War II.
World War II, and we go through from World War II quite softly through into Russia,
Soviet Union,
and
yes.
Soviet Onion, the Soviet Onion.
Yes.
Our first, and this is for this is we'll get straight into this now. Professor Ashley Jackson features quite heavily in these conversations, and that is a good thing. It is never a bad thing, and I want to talk about him in more detail. But yes, this is Philomena Kunk. And just to go back to what we were saying earlier about the experts and that being a particular track, it's one thing that I've noticed that perhaps we haven't touched on is the delivery of the show is dual layer. Tri-layer actually. It's a series of walk and talks in the traditional broadcasting fashion, which gives its legitimacy. Philomena Kunk, a brilliant one at the beginning. I think she's on a dockside in London, maybe. And clearly the producer has chosen a day in which the wind is a little too high, but scheduling doesn't allow for filming to be rescheduled. So Diane is giving her introduction whilst her hair is all over the place, and she makes reference to that. That's the beginning bit. Then we move into a deeper layer of, what would you call it?
The stew.
I would say it's the main thread of pure satire, which is all of the sound bites. So it's archive, it's B-roll footage, which has some of the best jokes in it, and that's where Charlie Brooker and the rest of the writers really get to flex their stuff in the writing for that core thread. But that rarely involves Philomena speaking on screen. And then you have the third layer, which is the experts.
Yeah, that's a good point because, we talked about that a little bit in the sense that we don't have the kind of interaction with her that the experts do. And that's because a lot of how things are presented is done in voiceover or camera reads. And in the presentation of the voiceovers, there's a lot of time for refinement in the writer's room. If like, yeah, we didn't like the way that line read, we can come back and re-record it and we'll play it here. But then it leads into those moments that we get with the experts here. And I think it's a great setup because we see
it undercuts,
yeah,
doesn't it?
exactly.
It works almost against the grain slightly.
Yeah, well, we get Diane like camera facing, which sort of engages the audience in a way that like we're watching this person tell a story, and then like it gets turned into the voiceover as we go through, like you said, some B-roll, and we get some backstory, and that's really where the satire is layered because you have the opportunity to really layer it in there. And one of the things that I think I probably have been aware of but couldn't really put words to before this episode was I tend to laugh a little bit more when I'm only listening to the show.
Yes, and that dude, you've nailed it. The way that it's structured in my head is that core thread of the B-roll footage and her talking over the top. That's your primary narrative. That is what the writers want to say in this episode, and they've refined it to such a point whereby every few seconds you're getting a beat, you're getting a joke, which is landing, and it doesn't matter because they're so good at it. What is it? They mispronounce Karl Marx and the communist or communist. They're just little mistakes, little smudges here and there, pointing out that if you look at a picture of Karl Marx, if you look really closely, you might notice that he has a beard. That's the core of the show. That's the core of the show. That's the show they want to do. I think if they really had their own way, and if there weren't people standing over their shoulders going, you can't just do that, you have to do more, they probably would just do that. And that's probably actually the closest thing of the genesis of the show, which goes back to Charlie Brooker's Weekly Wipes, is that kind of was what it was.
Yeah.
And actually using Barry Shippies and Philomena Cunk'd was a first exercise in giving texture to a show.
Yeah.
And they continued that through.
You could do that, but you couldn't do that for an hour-long episode.
No.
Yeah.
No, because people would be like, it's just joke after joke after joke after joke. But the genius of having those clips with the experts is twofold, because it both reinforces and kind of works against the show, because they are deliberately structuring it so that if you weren't actually listening to the words themselves, just the tone of the words and the delivery of the words and the context of seeing what you're seeing on screen, we talked about this, you would believe perhaps this is a actual documentary.
Yes.
This is a real factual documentary. It's only through those words, through those jokes, that those things start to crack, and you start to realize, oh, this is fun. Oh, this is thoughtful. This is funny. This is insightful. This is fucking funny. And then comes the double blow, which is the experts, because it does reinforce it, because it completely dismantles the idea that this is a factual documentary. You know very quickly from watching any interaction between Cunk'd and an expert that this is comedy. This is satire. This is absurdism. This is ridiculous. This is unanswerable. And then it starts to pose that question, which then kind of it picks everything back up. So it rolls it all into one, which is the appearance of something official, whilst actually being a secret agent or a Trojan horse, which delivers some incredible insights. Incredibly fun in a comedic way, absolutely. But I think Lynn Roden said it best in episode 3. It's one of those few shows that has you rolling on the floor in laughter, but thinking about for the next week, like certain things, like really deep thinking. That's a hell of a thing to pull off.
It's not easy, but I also think in watching the show, especially as a first timer, like there's just something because the show is so not just married to the type of show that it's parodying, but it also executes that parody at such a high level that, like you said, if you just put it on mute, it would just look like all of these other sort of, docu-series, and you wouldn't know the difference. So what my eyes are seeing and what that signal is telling my brain versus what I'm hearing and what that signal is telling my brain, like there's a competition going on
Yeah. Well,
in my head
usually,
while watching it. That's why when I sit here at my desk and I'll play it, I'll just put it on in the background as I'm working or like writing notes for the show, and then it's
oh,
like listening
wow.
to it is a much different experience.
That's very interesting. This is the genius of the show. Usually, in a case where you present something as what the audience is expecting it to be in a very recognizable package, when you deliberately slash that to pieces and include completely counter focused points of content which oppose it, the equation is simple. You destroy something.
Yes.
You're cutting it down. What they achieve with this is alchemy. It changes it. Like, it's the combination. It's not just that by cutting into the mythos and the almost kind of arrogance and cockiness behind production of these types of things, like the grandiose, this is how things are, and all of that. Cutting things down usually just cuts things down. The way they do this actually elevates it. It creates a chain reaction which builds into something completely new, and therefore gives rise to weird people in their late 30s, early 40s having to start a podcast.
Well, it's sort of like a bungee jump, and on the way down is all of the tearing down of the established format. But then at the bottom of the jump, she asks a question to one of these experts that actually sounds maybe stupid on the surface, but has a lot of substance to it. And all of a sudden, we're rebounded and going the other way on the bungee. And she kind of gets into that with Ashley Jackson here. And Jake, you can chime in on this if you have made contact with Professor Jackson.
But just before Jake comes in, did Jake and everyone, I said something in the first episode about Professor Ashley Jackson. I think I introduced him as a very stern-looking man, sincere-looking man, grey hair, big build, and then I said extremely long earlobes. I'm not sure if anyone remembers that. Everyone here has watched this episode a couple of times. Do you not? You see it too, right? He's got really long. It's big. No,
I didn't look at his earlobes this time.
Why have I got this? Listen, if we're going to cut anything out, one, that bit from a minute ago, and two, this bit, me obsessing, or I don't want to use the word fetish. It's not a fetish. I shouldn't have said that. Let's put that.
Can't walk it back now.
I respect the man. I respect the man immensely. I don't know why I keep looking at his ears. Sorry, Jake. Please save me.
Jake, have you spoken
to
Professor Jackson?
No, I've not had the pleasure. All my 15 emails have gone unanswered.
Well, that's a shame. One day, we'll keep at it.
We will utilize the network that we are building. We have contacts. Again, talking of growth, not to be big-headed, but we started the show at a very singular point with nothing. We come here to the episode 5. Episode 5.
I don't know. Yes.
Yeah, who knows? Who cares? Episode 5, whereby we have channels. Let's just say we have some channels.
Well, in this conversation that comes about with Ashley Jackson, the point at which momentum gets reversed, I think, is the point of proxy wars, basically, in trying to understand like
Say it.
whether or not like proxy wars are like choosing a character from Street Fighter 2. And now Street Fighter 2 is like a very, very specific example, and it seems a little far-fetched, and like, why would you even bring Street Fighter 2 into this conversation?
Nick, are you aware of Charlie Brooker's personal obsession with video games?
I am not, but I am very familiar with
Does
Street
that make
Fighter
sense
2.
now?
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with Street Fighter that maybe a lot of people on sort of the outside looking in maybe don't understand is that it is an exceptional fighting game.
Genuinely, it's very hard in the pantheon of video games because of the developments over time and things to it's like, how do you compare, Babe Ruth to, I don't know, today's greatest baseball player? It's a pointless conversation. Nick, as you're about to say, the simplicity and the stickiness and the attraction to Street Fighter 2 is almost unparalleled as a video game.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they're on Street Fighter 5 now, and it's like it's a bunch of micro refinements that are designed to really sort of improve on the last game in the way that not every fighting game or every game is designed to do. And I think while the analogy seems far-fetched and ridiculous, she mentions like this particular character, and okay, well, here's the American Ken, and he shoots fireballs, and so you want the guy who can jump and counter the fireballs.
Well, Dalsim, obviously, because he's got greater reach, and he can do spinning kicks over Ken's fireballs. Listen, if you're going to be facing a man who can throw balls of fire at you, you want to be an opponent who has the ability to, jumping spinning kick over the top of Ken's balls.
Yeah, Ken better watch out for his balls.
But we talked again, going back to Ashley Jackson. It's a point in which I think this is a wider point about experts, and we've talked a lot about how they interact with her. And our natural assumptions when we started this was just going off of what Diane and a lot of the producers and Charlie themselves said, which was that they know it's a comedy, but they don't know what questions we're going to ask. We know now categorically that is not true. We know that. We know that directly from Dr. Nigel Spivey. I'll give a spoiler here. Professor Rupert Sheldrake did know who she was, but only because he had his researcher look into her. Irving Finkel 100% did not know who she was or what she was about. So I think there is more. I think the truth to it is a bit more aligned with the belief of most people when they first watch the show, which is these people don't know what they're walking into, and they don't. Ashley Jackson is an interesting case because we talked in the first episode about why he was so unique, and he captures people. He's probably up there in the top 3 because his approach to Philomena is. We talked about the nuclear conversation where she breaks down in tears. Again, referenced with Dr. Nigel Spivey, who said she did the same thing in his interview with her, but they didn't use that footage. And I think we could probably potentially, I don't know, estimate that she probably broke down in a number of other conversations that never made it to air. But it's because quite singly, those didn't make it to air. Because how can you beat Professor Ashley Jackson's approach to talking to Philomena? Because there's a purity to it, which I think crosses the bridge between what Irving Finkel said to us in his interview and Nigel Spivey said, which is Spivey said that you can't come across, you can't be on it repeatedly and not come across as a bit of a smart ass academic. And I think Professor Ashley Jackson proves that not to be true, because he's the pure embodiment of sticking compartmentalization. Is that the right word? He's able to balance. He's able to he knows that this is a piss take. He knows that this is a comedy show. We don't know, because we haven't unfortunately spoken to him yet. We don't know if he knew that going into it or not. But the way that he maintains a what would you call, like a force field of integrity around his delivery and his responses to Philomena is quite incredible. I've likened it to balancing. I think he is acting. I've had conversations with people online whether or not he's acting, and in my opinion, he is, because he knows that this is not a real documentary and she's not a real character. He knows that she is acting. However, he is choosing to ignore that fact and treat the performative side of the character as real, and that's the side that he engages with. And it is that decision and the commitment to that decision, alongside the earnestness of his answers, which is, I think, makes him such a standout in the show. He truly is unique, because, listen, how do you end that sentence after she has asked him whether or not Vladimir Putin is Zangief and some other nation is Darsim? He gives a very balanced answer about, well, you would need to ask President Putin of Russia whether or not that is a clear and direct comparison that he thinks would fit the bill. But obviously, in that scenario, you do want to exhibit capabilities that would allow you to jump over Ken's balls.
I was hopeful during that interview, or at least during that question, that Ashley Jackson was a Street Fighter player himself.
I know, but
and I was like,
isn't.
come on.
Would that
then
be
it would have been a fantastic answer to that question.
It's a great technique, like, because again, going back to Irving Finkel in her interactions with him, she brought in Limp Bizkit and she brought in rap metal. It's a really good technique, kind of. Yeah, I guess introducing pop culture, specific niche subculture to an academic.
The professor, I mean, he clearly loves ABBA, and like that was a risk. Like, there's no guarantee that he loves ABBA or even has listened to ABBA. So
Nick,
I feel like
look me in the eye.
Yeah.
Nick, stop. Look me in the eye.
Uh-huh.
Do you think, or do you believe he was lying when he said he loves ABBA?
No.
Look at me. No, I don't either.
No, I don't. I think he was telling the truth 100%.
I think it's one of those instances where I think most of us, 99%, believe in his response, how he came back. I love ABBA. Oh, I love ABBA. And specifically Dancing Queen. We believe him because of his earnestness. However, if there is a universe in which he was lying, kind of doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter. In fact, it even makes him even greater, because if he is lying because he is doing it to assuage her and make her feel more comfortable while she's vulnerable in that moment, just makes him an even better human being, doesn't it? So it's a win-win for Ashley Jackson on episode 5 of Cunk'd on Earth.
Yeah. I hope that one of those emails sent in that direction will eventually find its target, or at least get a response of some kind, because we got to get Ashley Jackson on here. We'll do a whole like ABBA segment on the show just for him. But is it Professor Jackson she's talking to about Sputnik or Spunk in outer space?
It's not Professor Jackson, unfortunately. It's another expert. His name, unfortunately, I've forgotten, but he's wonderful. And I believe when people watch the Irving Finkel interview, he talks about when he finishes his interview with Philomena, that he walked out of the huge, great meeting hall that the interview was conducted in, and he walked past a number of other experts on their way in, some with differing levels of confidence going into, let's just say, this guy's brilliant. This guy's great. Like he comes back with very much kind of, I'd say, like school teacher energy. Because she starts with, So the Russians just shot Spunk into space, pretty much.
And
now
this is Anu Osha.
Anu Osha, yes, Professor Anu Osha. Again, there's a lot of we've gone back to it about there is a schoolyard element to Philomena Cunk'd, which is the questions that she asks are kind of the questions that the smart ass in your high school would ask the teacher in a way that's going to get a laugh from everyone else, make the teacher look stupid. And we understand that dynamic. And the teacher understands that dynamic. Any teacher understands that dynamic. You're going to have students who are going to try and knock you off course. I mean, the way that he maintains full kind of positivity and energy and rhythm after he's just heard the word spunk, it's something to behold. He does a great job of bringing her back, recalibrating. Well, and he forgives her for it. Because he says, well, actually, yes, because Russian actually is one of those languages that in translation the words do sound different, and therefore, no, it's not spunk, it's Sputnik. Excellent.
It gives her a lot of grace, and it's not just that he hears the word; it's her description of it, that it would float in space like it floats in the bathtub. At which point I'm like, damn, Diane.
She's bringing it right down.
Okay.
Bring it right down.
I see.
Bring it right down. I like the technique because we know what's coming next, and it comes quite quickly, doesn't it? We're not going to hold a minute silence because we're broadcasters and we're professionals. We're not leaving a minute silence on a broadcast.
No, but I do appreciate her sort of candor and I mean, in thinking about it, it is sad with Laika to think that they launched a dog into space to just let it die to study it. That is sad.
The duality of it fits perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah,
because
for this show,
what we
especially.
have exactly, which is it's that ability for you to hold two truths in your mind at the same time. In order to go to space, which most educated people would say, that's a good idea. And it is a good idea. If you believe in modern culture at the moment and all of the technology that you access and they use it from, I think there's a huge percentage, and they've tracked this, like an incredibly high percentage of technology that we use today that would not have been developed or integrated into modern culture if it hadn't been for the moon missions and the space race. The technology advanced in order to achieve that goal, set a different parallel course for the rest of us, for the rest of human history, in pursuit of one goal. Mobile technology, all of this stuff, all of it came from there. It doesn't stop her. It doesn't stop her. Of course it won't. It won't ever. And I got to be honest, there's something deeply funny about someone getting... Because we can get upset. It's the one rule. Dude, you do a movie podcast. What's the one rule in movies?
Don't kill the dog.
Don't fucking kill the dog.
Yeah.
We live by that. That's not a societal choice. That's not an educated cognitive choice that human beings come to. That is almost like an inbuilt kind of value that most normal people have or should have. Don't you dare harm a dog. How fucking dare you? However, we're also capable of balancing that with, do you know what? If we go to the moon and we get Wi-Fi and shit, do you know what? I might kill a dog, like one dog. One dog. So it presents that as a duality, and whilst we're wrestling with that, she then throws in an outraged tone. So there's dead dogs floating around in space. So every single Star Wars movie where they filmed it, there's dead dogs in space.
Every movie that's filmed in outer space.
There's dead. Perfect. There's dead dogs in Star Wars. Boom. That's the big one. That lifts it right up. And then she comes home with the hammer. I think we need to take a moment's silence for Leica. Again, like those balances going from vulnerability that really connects with you on an emotional level to complete absurd dark humor, just masterful.
Yeah, and I mean, in this case, the expert, Mr. Osha, handles it as well as you can, because she's all of a sudden like hitting him with a lot, and obviously he like can't respond to everything there. He can't be like, okay, well, first of all, like, we're not filming movies in space, and second of all, like, you know, even if we were, we're not filming the dog flying in space. But like, he makes sure to be very candid about the fact that the dog returned to Earth and disintegrated, burned up in the atmosphere. And
don't
so, like,
worry. Do you know what? But that's what's so lovely. His reassurance to her is, don't worry, it died after a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's all right. But that's perfect, because she's forced him almost in a beautiful chess move into that. It's a dance. It's a magnificent dance. I just want to go back, because I don't want to end this episode or this series without having spoken about Professor Brian Klaas a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about our favorite experts, and although I would say probably he, because of the breadth of the show now in terms of all the other iterations, he probably wouldn't make the top 3, just simply because he's not in that many. But by God, there's bare arms. Bare arms comes to bear in this episode, because talking about the space race, and then moving on to I believe, what was it? I think perhaps what he described as the most significant period
the
in
value of the Cold War. Like, can we just skip over that, or like, do we need to like stop and make mention of the Cold War?
She really hammers that home. I'd love, just throws it out. Do we really need to go over the Cold War? Well, and it's his tone. It's his tone. I love him so much. That tone of, well, you know, it's probably the most significant moment in history. So you probably should, you know, dedicate a little bit to it.
Yeah, I feel like what I like about him the most is not necessarily like his tone or his delivery, but his posture. Like, the way he is seated is always like very upright,
Grounded.
and yes, he's very much like in control, where it seems like a lot of the other experts are more relaxed in just sitting in the chair and they're speaking with her. He feels like he's very like plugged in and programmed to like have that sort of physical behavior, because we see that with him. You know, we see how Ashley Jackson has interacted with her, and then we see, you know, in like Ruth Adams like breaks in this episode talking about Elvis's penis.
Listen, it's one of those things in a show where you know it's working with an audience, where they kind of tell you, the promise to you always is that, you know, that the interviews, when you cut to them with Diane Morgan, you're very certain that there must have been so many clips where they must have burst out laughing, corpsing and such. And so many people on Instagram are very, very keen and very much want to see what those outtakes look like.
Yeah.
And they've done a very, very good job of actually not releasing that. I agree with that strategy. They did they released some deleted scenes, which are excellent, by the way. I think her mate Paul developing skin pockets is one of those. But this is the one which kind of this. We won't get to it because it comes in a later series, which is Cunk'd Britain. No, sorry, earlier actually, but later for us, earlier for the show. Yeah, in which Robert Peston is allowed one tiny little break where he snickers and then it cuts. This is the other one, and this is my favorite. I mean, the setup is perfect. Speaking about Elvis, it's very easy to go down the route, and they start off down the route of, you know, the appropriation of black music. I think that's very much on brand, isn't it, for the writers and for Lamina? We know where we are with this. To then describe him as being like a pervert on a Zoom call.
Not wearing pants, basically.
Essentially, yeah. Everything from the waist down being, but to hammer home, God bless Ruth Adams. She's fantastic. It's such a good joke. And I know that she's spoken, Diane Morgan, about her need to keep a straight face. It's the thing that allows her to keep in character all the way through, which is the basic need that if I break, we lose this.
Yes.
Number one. If I break, we have to do the whole fucking thing again. That's going to make people pissed off. So 2 extremely strong drivers, but even still, you can go back and watch this episode and this clip in particular, and I really implore everyone to do so, in which she asks Ruth Adams, people were very, kind of emotionally vulnerable at the time, and they weren't, what's the word, exposed to a lot of sexual imagery and things. So seeing his penis they might have had a stroke. Yeah. It's beautifully crafted. And there's something joyous because in that moment, they could have just done what they've done in all other episodes, which is just, cut out the part where she breaks down laughing. This is the one they leave in. And it's a beautiful exception to the rule. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's good to see that Charlie and Diane are not above a dick joke. And to see that in that moment too, where she catches Professor Adams.
Oh, she pulls her back.
Yeah. Wait a second. No, this isn't funny.
Whoa, this isn't funny. It could have really had a stroke. I don't know what you're laughing at. That takes balls, and that takes balls to leave that in. I think that is, I think, a crowning achievement, and a crowning kind of rounds off the series perfectly, which is it still sings of Diane Morgan's ability and her mastery of the role. And again, I implore people, when we release it, listen to the interview with, obviously both Rupert Sheldrake, but specifically with Irving Finkel, about he puts his finger right on it in terms of what it is that connects her to people. And it's not, it obviously is all the things that we've bumped up against, like the different textures of the show, the dualities and friction and so on. But it's all anchored and it's all pointless if she doesn't have an extreme amount of integrity to what she's doing. And she delivers it in such an expert way that it deserves the credit. It deserves the credit that it potentially won't get, because it's very easy for people to say, oh, she's doing an Ali G.
Yeah, and I think that is a very sort of superficial comparison, but I understand that at least. But when
it's missing the nuances and the real achievement of doing something at this level.
Yeah, when Ali G shows up, like he's wearing like a gold chain, he's wearing like a giant suit. Like you kind of already know from the visual cues with that character that this is not something to be taken seriously.
Turning up wearing the jacket that she's wearing,
a little Sherlock Holmes like, yeah.
It's not on a level with what is it? I think someone described it as M&S bargain basement. Like,
yeah. This episode, though, sort of, I think, is a interesting one in the series because it brings us back to kind of like where we started accidentally, in that this gets into a lot of sort of smartphones and connectedness of the internet. And she goes all the way in through like simulation theory, which, in fairness, what she asks, while sounding kind of silly, is a very good existential question that sort of tears down sim theory, right? Like if we're living in a
100%.
simulation, why wouldn't the simulation just put the show on TV rather than making me sit here and do this boring interview part of it myself? It's a great
question.
Yeah, it's a great observation, and it really does like hold the candle to simulation theory.
By this stage, when this episode has come out, it's several series of Black Mirror are already a thing, and that's the thing you have to remember here is that now, once we move past the 60s, 70s into the technology revolution, this is where Charlie Brooker really is in like home turf. Like this is his sweet spot. He very much the way that he writes those Black Mirror episodes, dealing with big ideas and going into, I mean, I guess really, no one really thinks of Black Mirror as funny, do they?
Yeah.
Even though it really is, I mean, it is. But if you were to say, like, if that won a, I don't know, BAFTA in the comedy category, people would be like, excuse, have you seen the one with Andrea Riseborough? Have you seen the one where the fucking robot dogs are hunting her across a black and white, scorched post-apocalyptic British landscape? Like, it's not a fun. It's not a show that would be considered as fun in its sense. But this is kind of like Charlie Brooker's other vehicle, where perhaps he can say the same stuff he's saying in Black Mirror, but with, I don't know, a bit of a different twist. It's coming through the mind of someone who can just say whatever they want. Really, it's
yeah. I think with something like Black Mirror, it's okay to acknowledge that it has a sense of humor, but it would not qualify necessarily as a comedy, right? Like the sense of humor is so dark that you kind of like have to laugh at the absurdity of some of the things, but
I think it's just more important that you can't call it a comedy, because there's so much fucking stuff in it that either scares you, unsettles you, or makes you think. Just straight up, just makes you question where we're going as a species. And they do that exact same thing in all of the Cunk'd on Earth episodes, and they do it in the other series. The difference is the tone. I think it's great. It's wonderful. But as you say, getting into the technological era of essentially giving people greater tools to be shitty to each other online.
Yeah. Which, is, I mean, as we have talked about YouTube and the YouTube comments section and a lot of the comments section, I mean, we've all, between you, Jake, and I, we've all spent plenty of time online. I'm sure we've all interacted with someone who is a gigantic asshole. And there's probably, in fairness, we've probably all been an asshole to somebody online too. So
100%. Absolutely.
So even
live
like
and let
the
live,
best, even the best of
be
us
accountable.
are sort of drawn into exactly what she's saying, and that unfortunately more connectedness does not necessarily equal like more humanity.
Absolutely. I mean, just using Twitter as a pure example, if you consider how much that, I mean, just even the sheer range from how just go off of vibe. All right. The whole vibe of Twitter when it started was, oh, this is cool. And that's okay. That was the same for most of these social media platforms. We see the same cycles now with almost every platform, which is that it opens up with a wave of excitement and adoption, and then it becomes something different, and then humanity kind of does what they do with it, whilst it's also being influenced by hands from above, which, let's just say, probably do not have altruistic or the greatest sense of the greater good. Yeah,
I
most of
think
these
that's
places
fair.
just they end up as shitholes. Let's just call it what it is, Nick. Fuck it. Let's just call it what it is. YouTube's a horrible place. X is a horrible place. I really like Instagram, but that's only because I guess there's a huge amount of interaction with the stuff I post on Instagram. It's still owned by Mark Zuckerberg, who owns
Yeah.
Facebook, that was the first fucking platform that I
Yeah.
jettisoned immediately. So it's not like, and that's the difficulty that we're all in at the moment, is that we've adopted these platforms to build versions of ourselves that we present to the outside world that we hope are the best reflections of ourselves. However, those aren't in our control. Absolutely not. And every single one of them is tainted. It's a bigger question that probably we should get into right now. But
Yeah, that's fair.
where are
And
we going as a race, and how do we want to choose to communicate, and who should be in charge of that shit?
well, I think Diane raises a funny point in this, in that should there be social media for like the wankers and
Wankers.
then social media for everybody else? And
Nick,
yeah.
a very quick cheat or life hack. If you
Mhm.
want to make an English or British person laugh, just say any rudimentary sentence, leave at least a good 2 seconds gap, and then just put the word wankers at the end. It
That's how it works.
always goes down well. Plenty of people I know online who would benefit from that. Wankers.
I'll keep that in mind for the
Mm.
other shows when I need to appeal to my friends across the pond.
Have it in your back pocket, bro.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's good advice. I feel like there should be basically an entire episode just on maybe like the internet, social media, technology, where it currently is, because I feel like it's a rich territory for her, especially given that Charlie is very adept at navigating the social satire of that kind of stuff. So I would like it selfishly. If we do get there, I hope so. If we don't, then so be it. But there's still, I assume.
How do you feel, Nick?
What?
Let's bring this to a close. Let's tighten the circle a little bit. What do you think, technology wise? Should we be always be optimizing, building towards a greater future, or do we need to be pulling ourselves back?
Well, I mean, I feel like optimizing and building towards a greater future sounds really nice, but in application, I don't know how much of our technological advances actually move towards doing that. That makes sense.
That becomes a question. It becomes a question of, can we? I mean, this is the Jurassic Park Jeff Goldblum conundrum, isn't it? However, this is the thing that I think this frames perfectly, which is technological advance for the betterment of our species. It's hard to argue that that's a bad thing,
right? Yeah.
If that's done within an ecosystem in which it gives power and influence and the ability to manipulate something as fundamental as social truth in a very, very volatile global environment, it's interesting, isn't it? I could probably live without Twitter in my life and be happy.
Oh, yeah.
Not knowing that Elon Musk can't do the things that he wants to do with that kind of platform. I'd rather there be nothing than have that platform, or a platform of that size, in his hands. Genuinely.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean,
I think we just lost that one MAGA supporter.
No, he's gone now. Well, I don't know. Now that Elon has sort of, like, him and Trump are going through their divorce, maybe that supporter is Team Elon the whole time, and he'll stick around. But I think like anecdotally for myself, I have put time limits on my device so that I cannot engage in sort of like endless social media, and I feel like
Rabbit holing.
yeah, I feel like my productivity is better. I feel like I'm just more at peace, not constantly being plugged in all the time.
However, Nick, and this is the key issue, is that again, I don't want to go back to age, but we kind of have to here. You and I are both of a generation in which, when we grew up, this wasn't a thing, and
Correct.
we are bridging the gap between the old era and the new. And the people beneath us, there is an age, there's a huge generation of people, generations now, who it's a different scenario because we grew up without it. And therefore, perhaps that gives us the context and the ability to look at it and how we use it with a much wider, perhaps more nuanced and insightful view. Whereas if you grew up with it, it's probably an extremely different scenario because not being on
Yeah.
social media would make you pretty unique, wouldn't it? If you're a
Yeah, it's like
20-year-old.
yeah, it's like you
Like,
almost don't exist at that point to the rest of the world, which
mhm,
I mean, that's how we grew up. Like I didn't
exactly.
there was no awareness of the world needs to know my
No,
existence through
but
A, B,
Nick,
or C.
I bet you joined fan clubs as a kid, though. Did you?
I did not. Nope.
But do you see my point, though, in terms of the human instinct to, and this is a pure case in point, us doing this podcast. I like something. I want to talk to someone else
Yeah.
who likes that thing too, which in
Yeah,
itself,
very simple.
pure and simple. But
Those motivations, of course, I think are still there for uh, a good majority of the people that seek out sort of those social interactions. But like I'm at the point right now where if I didn't have all of the shows that I need to sort of like I have to give them some kind of a presence on social media, I don't know how much I would be around at all. Like I said, I'm ready to go convert an old school bus into my house
yes,
and live off the
do you
grid.
think that's age though? Do you think that's age? Do you think that's different? Because I find myself exactly in the similar position whereby, and I hate to say this, as someone who did almost on 700-800 movie ranking spaces on Twitter between 2 to 3 hours in length, each one. Um, I don't watch movies anymore unless it's a movie I feel like I really need to see. I used to get really excited. Oh my god, the Bear season 4 was about to come out. It dropped. The whole thing came out a number of weeks ago, and I didn't even. And I did realize, oh shit, it came out. I'm now in that position where I'm like, you know what? I'll get to it when I get to it. I don't
Yeah.
need to. I don't need to watch it. I don't have that urgency anymore. Now, that's an interesting question. Is that a result or a reaction to the oversaturation of content generally, or is it a mix of us just being old and realizing, do you know what? Like, there's so much fucking stuff. I'm just going to prioritize. And what I need in my life is watching a guy turn a bus into a house. I'd
Yeah.
rather that than I'd rather that than feel like I'm compelled. I'll tell you what it is. I think there's certain personality types which I don't know if it's because of the way we grew up and everything to it, but I think we're now conditioned to be anti PR and marketing. Genuinely, I think we can smell inauthenticity a mile away. And genuinely, at this age, I'm at the point where I'm feeling like if you tell me I need to watch it, my almost instant reaction is, well, fuck you.
Yeah, I mean that's fair because I never really phrase anything like you need to watch this. It's always like, is it good? Well,
But that's the
I
intent.
liked it.
that's the intent behind any degree of, like, there's no way of you finding out that there's a new series or a new version of the thing that you love without having a group of people having to sit down in a room for a lot of money and figure out all of the key messaging and the audiences and the demographics, and we're going to have to structure this thing in a way. Like, I genuinely think we're at the end of the end of a cycle here, whereby everything is almost feels like it's being made by algorithm in itself. It's like a starter kit. It's like, if you want your movie or a TV show to be successful, you need A plus B plus C plus D, and you do it like this, and you roll it out like this, and you engage with these people. That formulaic delivery of content in itself, yes, it will sustain it for a time. It will probably launch it. It will be successful on a number of fronts. But the one key thing that it doesn't do is shock you and make you think, oh, that was. My point being, I think Philomena Cunk'd does operate in that space because it's hard to quantify. It's hard, as we've proven over many hours of talking about Philomena Cunk'd. It is difficult and requires some thinking to put your finger on why it's so good, or in my opinion, why it's so good. And that's unique. Just to finish that off, Nick, I haven't asked you outright. Let's bring this home, because we started this endeavor with me asking you to trust me that this would be worth our time and you would like this.
Mm-hmm.
And at no point, actually, throughout this entire process have I ever stopped and asked you, dude, do you like this shit? I just take it as, well, of course he likes it. He's not an idiot. Of course he likes it. What? Everyone knows my opinions. Can you bring this home for us? As someone who never watched Philomena Cunk'd and have now watched 5 full episodes, how do you feel?
I do like it. I feel like it does two things that I really love just among all series, which are, it is a mini series. So it knows that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it knows how to be economical with its screen time, and that most of the episodes are like 30 to 45 minutes maybe. So there's not wasted time. It's not like a show that I really liked and then it comes back and then, oh, there's filler episodes. And now I watch Love Island with my wife, which is like right now sort of like the epitome of trash reality television in America. And
sorry, what?
Love Island USA. We watched that. And I said, it's like,
you watch that, Nick?
I do. I watch it with my wife.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Sure?
But this is my point. So like, Love Island is, I want to say 38 to 40 episodes. Each of them are like an hour. And then the hour that they show us is just edited in the most kind of like manipulative, teasing type of way, where everything is drawn out and bloviated and very annoying just in how it's produced.
But it's sticky. And that's something that we talked about just then in terms of it links with the question that she raises when she talks about the 50s. And she talks about the 50s in an incredible way in this episode, whereby she, I think, accomplishes in perhaps 5 or 6 sentences what Matthew Weiner tried to do with the entire series of Mad Men. And she does it beautifully, where she talks about the cycle of capitalism, effectively meaning that people strive to earn enough money to buy things which raise their social status. But in order to do that, they need to work really fucking hard. And that is not on their terms. That's on someone else. That's on the system's terms. And that makes them miserable. But they feel miserable. And in order to assuage those feelings, they then go out and buy more things. And in order to do that, they need to work more. Like that entire kind of broken loop, or that loop of misery. And she does that does that really, really well in this episode.
It does, and that sort of thing that she's commenting on is the reason that a lot of people watch garbage reality TV, because it is like the comfort junk
Anathema.
food. Yeah,
Exactly. However,
it's that thing.
However, it's does that come down? It's a deeper question whether that comes down to taste. Are we actually actively making ourselves dumber by doing so? There are arguments on both sides. Absolutely. However, listen, dude, as you just said, you watch a lot of Love Island. You know the algorithm for Love Island, which is it picks up on top of the cliffhanger that they made the week on the end of the last episode. Always leave on a cliffhanger. And let's be honest, as soon as the show starts, you start on that, oh, I'm back on the train. I really want to find out what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch an hour's worth of content in which you go through a steadily declining level of engagement until you get right to the end. And then the best bit is literally the last 10 seconds in which they go next time on, and you go, oh,
yeah.
And it shows you a couple of clips, and then you're back on you're back on the smack.
Yeah, and that's not unique to Love Island. It's kind of pretty common to just American television that has a lot of episodes, because they're not economical with their time, and they know that the only way to like get the audience to keep watching is to continuously edge them into thinking that the next episode is going to be the orgasm episode for them. But instead, it's like, no, we just edge you along to infinity, and nobody gets to come in this equation. There's no spunk to be had.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, I don't know how we ended up here. But yeah, no spunk to be had.
No spunk to be had. However, it's not up for. This is the thing. I'm also deeply against gatekeeping. I think it's deeply fucking arrogant to say what is and what isn't art, and whatever anyone gets out of anything, if it brings them some joy, some release, some relief, it doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
However, there are wider points to be considered, which are the ecosystems that these things produce, which then kind of exponentially grow, because we've seen it. We're seeing it now everywhere across the entire, especially across the West. It's got to the point where no one can afford products because the prices keep rising and the quality of the product keeps declining, and the size of the product. Listen, if you've ever bought a bag of crisps or chips, I think you say in your language, you've seen it. Like, it's fucking a third of it is full. A third of it is full. Like, that's the system that is broken. That is a different question to what is and what isn't art. And I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure, because that system is designed to like not even have the consumer try to differentiate that question. Like, is it art?
Depends.
Is it not art? It doesn't always matter.
Is.
Yeah.
It's a big question about whether the BBC here in Britain, for American listeners, so the BBC is state funded. Sorry, it's Well, it's funded by, you pay a license fee, and it is state funded. But I think most people in this country would agree that the BBC is an institution which is a positive and force for good in our national character and our national culture. That is a good thing. However, there are risks that come along with that. It's a balance. Everything is a wave. Everything is the top and the bottom, and somewhere in the middle, if you can find that magic. And that, I think, that beautifully leads us kind of to how I feel about Philomena Cunk'd, is finding that middle ground and surfing it beautifully. That's where something which, as on the surface, like Philomena Cunk'd, which could be seen as completely frivolous and stupid and not having any actual academic or even social value to the world. I think it's clear, not simply just from the number of hundreds, thousands of people who just listen to this podcast, but the millions, billions of people who've watched clips of Philomena Cunk'd all over the world. If it hits a note, if it strikes an emotional note like this does, it's a good thing. It's got to be a good thing. If it makes you think and it makes you laugh, how can it be a bad thing?
Yeah, beautifully stated. I don't even want to say anything else after that. I think
No,
that's a
I
great
demand
place
an
to close
answer,
it
Nick.
out.
No, we're not closing. I actually want your answer.
How can it be bad if it is
No,
those
I
good
don't.
things? Okay.
I don't.
Okay, good. Well, I think that's a good place to put a pin in where we are right now. Sort of brings us full circle to where we started. We, as we talked about, thanks to Jake's lengthy efforts, has secured interviews that have already happened that you, Skadooosh, have done with Mr. Sheldrake and Mr.
Spent
Finkel.
an hour talking about morphic resonance, collective memory, and morphic fields, and whether or not AI could actually be a reinforcement of a morphic field, because it does purport to be a collective human dream, which is then mirrored back through an AI lens, which essentially means it's a reinforcing, reoccurring morphic field.
Yes. That is going to be the entirety of your conversation with Mr. Sheldrake.
It's not. It's a lot funnier than that. Sorry, that's the worst possible way of fucking promoting.
You just put half of our audience to sleep talking about morphic resonance. But
listen,
no.
They will. I think they'll enjoy it. I think they'll enjoy it.
I think so.
He's entirely open. He's entirely open with me. He gives me very honest responses, great answers. And he answers every question very, very sincerely. And there's a lot of interesting points. I think for those of us, I think if you're able to get your head around, again, we shouldn't just assume. We should adopt the Nolan technique here, Nick, which is let's just assume people will keep up with this shit, and they will. Go and look at the interview with Professor Rupert Sheldrake and look at his theories on morphic resonance, because you can probably look on the outside as quite easily seeing why his hypotheses are scorned by academia. And he has some pretty strong opinions on that. And and that's an interesting case in terms of, what do you call it, politicization of science. That's another thing. However, he has some really interesting points, and there is some evidence in there that will make you question how ridiculous his hypotheses are, because there's some very interesting stuff in there.
Good.
But if you want a great time, if you want a really great conversation
for
over an hour, come for the Fink. The man is magnificent.
Everybody loves the Fink, so I'm looking forward to that. But those will be the next 2 episodes while we figure out what we're gonna do after that. So we'll have a few things for the audience here, and then of course, like, hey, if you like this, then listen to Bad Movies We Love. Jake's been on, Skadooosh has been on. I can link those episodes. But yeah, that's what I do when I'm not doing this.
If you want to hear 2 dickheads going on about Queen of the Damned. Queen of the Damned, which I still to this day maintain is a far more influential movie than people give it credit for. That is not to say that has any impact on what we can collectively agree as the quality of the movie. Fair. Influential and quality, 2 different characteristics. You and Jake did Caligula, though.
That's right, and that's a
niche. That is a niche audience, and I fucking love that.
I was like, oh boy, finally got to pull the trigger thanks to Jake on Caligula, and It was an interesting film. We had a good conversation about it. It's going to be one of the episodes that releases here in July, as it's getting hot. We're going to heat it up with Caligula. So
Just what Jake needs, more heat.
more heat.
In
More
Arizona
heat.
right now.
But of the Malcolm McDowell kind.
Well, we definitely get a lot of it.
I think Al Murray once said the best thing that ever happened to the British, and in terms of why we are perhaps so revered in terms of our culture and our comedy and our ability to hold conversations and just our prose and our speech and language, is because, of course, if all you had in the sky every day was blazing hot sunshine, there'd be fuck all to talk about. Luckily, in our country, it's like, see the weather? Yeah. Fucking rain again. Yeah, that's where it comes from. Before we go, I do want to do a very quick plug, a tiny little project. Everyone has seen, they've heard the theme music for this show, which was a tune that I was fiddling with at the beginning many months ago, which I ended up calling Philomena solely pretty much because it was the show music after a while. There's another project I'm working on called Sector 404, and look out for some updates on that. But if you wanted to live in a world in which perhaps in a digital reimagination of Philomena Cyber Cunk, one might say, there is music and there is art on all major platforms right now. If you follow or look for Cyber Cunks, there are 2 pieces of music, one of which is called Philomena. I'm not saying I want it to be the theme music to this show.
I was going to ask when you sent it to me.
It's high. I'm not saying it's high art. There is one lyric, and you can probably guess what it is. I would say it's still a fucking banger. So please go on Spotify, please go on Apple Music, download, stream, whatever it is. Go and find Cyberkunks, Philomena, and the second and the B-side, which is Verve, VERV, Let Them Learn. 2 songs that I'm very proud of and very happy with.
Well, congrats on that. And I did give it a listen. And my first instinct was like, I feel like this is a subtle question of, is this going to be the theme song for the show from now on? And maybe as we get into season 2 of Cunk'd, we update it, but it'll be for another day.
We may change the theme tune. I am steadfast to the belief that even if we get better, we should probably remain a very unofficial podcast.
Yeah, I'm with that. Saves me having to change lettering in the artwork too. So
efficiency, Nick.
Efficiency. Yeah, one less thing to worry about. But thank you for bringing me along on this journey with Philomena, and Jake, thank you for joining this party. And really, like I said, you're putting the official in unofficial, and really probably doing more work for the show than I am, in fairness. So thank you,
definitely
Jake.
More than I am.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute joy. I have the guitar in my hand. It's probably going to sound awful, and you, Nick, just cut this out if it sounds like absolute shit through the headphones.
Play us out. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to Cunk'd, part of the Scheist Podcast Network. Join us next time for a special bonus interview with Professor Rupert Sheldrake. Cunk'd was created and hosted by Nick Scheist and Skadooosch, and is recorded, edited, and produced at Scheist Podcast Studios. Our associate producer is Jake Crawford. Our theme music is written and performed by Mike Willoughby.